Why do creatives suck at sales?
Do you ever wish life had an undo button? Walking the balance between business and the creative life can be hard. But Matt and Shelby are here to attempt to answer the tough questions, so you don't need an undo. Presented by Made by Things. This is the CMD-Z Show.
All right. Right. You interrupted my intro, Shelby. It was going to be a good one. And when you interrupted me, I lost everything. And now this is our intro. This is the intro that we're going to stick with. This little fumbling of words. Anyway, welcome to the CMD-Z Show. My name's Matt. I'm here with Shelby and our mystery guest, which it's not really a mystery if you're clicking on this podcast to listen at this point, but we'll get there in just a second. But anyway, today's show is a really special one to me. It's really important for me to be able to get people on our show that I feel like could answer some really, really difficult questions. And sometimes that's getting people that you may not suspect as being one that has a lot of great answers to things. Yeah? So the guest that we have today is Kelly Sells. Now, let me do a little intro first to Kelly. I've known Kelly for, I don't know, it's been like 7 years, I think, somewhere around there.
I think so.
Yeah, and at this time, we were working at a studio together. I was an animator just tucked away in the corner, and I always saw Kelly running back and forth and always just bubbly and happy and talking with clients all the time. And I was always fascinated very early on, like, what exactly does she do? Like, okay, so she does...
What is she doing?
Right. So, like, if people would say, like, oh, she does business development. I'm like, I've never heard of this word before. Like, I have no idea what that means, even a little bit. So I found myself sort of studying a little bit and just paying very close attention to, like, the conversations that you were having, like, I mean, obviously it wasn't in the meetings that you had, but, like, just seeing how you talk to everybody, including, like, bringing clients in, showing them around and stuff. And again, I was just kind of captivated from day one, just seeing how you work with people, just seeing how your personality just completely, I don't know, uplifted everyone around you. You know, you're definitely somebody that gives energy to the room when you walk into it. And
Wow.
Yeah, so all of that being said,
That's amazing.
all of that being said, Kelly, why don't you go ahead and give your version of your intro?
Yeah, well, gosh, that's amazing. Thank you. And we've talked several times, since we started working together, and you told me how you kind of paid attention to the business development process when we were working together and after. And that it's just amazing to hear that because I like it when artists pay attention to everything that it takes to bring a project in. And that's really important. The team is very important. But my introduction, I'm Kelly Sells. I've been in business development representing, and I use that word representing always because it's a team effort, animation studios and live action and production studios for over 25 years, close to 30 years now. And it's really all I've done in the last 25, 30 years. And it's like you said, always been based on relationship development. I've never referred to what I do as sales. Right. And I have no idea what question you're going to hit me with today, but that's just something that I always preface when I'm talking to anyone is that it's really relationship development, and that's my process.
Right.
That process is not always right for everyone in every studio. But that's always been my process.
Right, right. So this leads perfectly to the question that I have.
Oh, good.
And let's see, how do I want to say this? Why do creatives suck at sales? Now, before you answer it, I'm gonna use that word sales, right? And you said, like, I don't consider what I do sales, but whenever other creatives are talking amongst each other, that's what it is. They're like, oh, I'm no good at sales. I can't go out there and like pitch myself. Like, I just want to do the work. Like, have troubles getting work to come in. I hate being salesy and like, just, I don't know, those sort of, what's it called? I don't know, just images of used car salesmen dance through their brains at these moments where they're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's not like, that's not me. That's not my personality. Um,
Yeah.
so starting at that, like, okay, why do creatives suck at sales? Take it away.
Okay. Um, well, suck is a strong word. But I know what you're saying because you're a creative yourself. And I think probably the main reason is because they think of it as sales. They think of it as, okay, I need to get out there. I need to contact as many people as I can. I need to talk about my widgets, which you're not selling widgets, you're selling creative and relationships and trust and, educate and, research and strategy and all the things that creative directors have always had to do. I was going to say these days, but that's not the case. I mean, it's always been that way. So I think they suck at sales because they think of it as sales. And I have my thoughts on how to remedy that. I don't know where, if you want me
Yeah,
to go
let's.
into any of the development stuff, but, I think of the ones I've worked with, creative directors in my career have always been my most important partner. My most important partner at any studio and any of the clients I work with now as a consultant have got to be the creative director and the head of production or the executive producer or, whoever's filling that role, those two roles, the operation side and the creative side. I could not have done what I did in my career without those teams. Um, so not thinking of it as sales, that immediately stresses you out when you're a creative. You're not going to get anywhere in your head with business development or sales if you're thinking of it as sales. It should always be thought of as relationship development. And if you are that person, that owner operator, like I know you are, and you're responsible for sales, and like you want to be that person. That's your preference right now. And a lot of owner operators, it's their preference. And so they just need to learn to think a little differently about sales and have the team members there delegate to them some of the things that can help the team with
Right.
sales. I am absolutely nothing without the people behind me. And that's always what I preach to my studios is I have a friendly personality. I'm a smart person. I love to go out and knock on doors and talk to people, but I get nowhere without the talent
Right.
of you guys standing
Right.
behind me. And
No, I was gonna
yeah,
say, like, I think that's a big thing there is that a lot of creatives, I mean, I guess we could say that most are relatively introverted. Do you consider yourself an extrovert, Kelly?
yeah. It's funny. Everybody asks me that. I do in my
Right.
professional. I will walk up to a door. I will knock on it. I will stick my head in and
Right.
no problem. But that's because they're a
Right.
stranger to me. And I want to tell them about this amazing team that I'm representing. In my personal life, I'm more of an introvert.
Interesting.
Like I don't go out. I'm not as social. I hate
Right.
crowds, It's like I think it's because of my
Right.
profession, I do enough of that, 10, 12 hours a
Right.
day.
Yeah.
So,
So, and
yeah.
that's it's
Yeah.
really fascinating to me because I feel like I'm really similar. Where I, yeah, personally, much happier just kind of relaxing, not going out. I've always been that way. Like even in like college, everyone's going to parties. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not interested. Just want to relax.
Yeah.
Um, but it came to a point where I'm like, okay, if I want to start a business, like you have to be good at getting out there. Like you don't have an option really. Like I guess there's a lot of
Right.
things as a business owner where you're like you run into things where you're like, no, I don't want to do these things, but you kind of focus a little bit more on the big picture. Like, okay, well, if I want this, then I need to do these things. If I'm not enjoying these things, it's because I'm not good at them. And if I'm not good at them, then I need to practice more and figure out how to become better
Yeah,
at those things.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, like so yeah.
And
But
and I yeah, I love that about you, as an owner operator. Not all creatives or owner operators. It's not that they don't want to. They have no idea
right,
how
right,
to, make that separation from being a creative director, being the owner operator, being involved in projects, to the relationship development side and getting out there outside of being a
right.
creative director. Some do, but most of them don't, and most of them aren't able to give up the idea of moving away from the
Right.
sales side
I
of
think
it,
so much of it is that, as a creative, you spend so much time like learning about software, learning about just how to be creative. You learn about
Oh
so
my
much of this
gosh, yeah.
stuff, but then I think it is tough for some people to kind of turn their head a little bit to the side and be like, "Oh, okay, now I need to learn this other thing that's more about business and not about what I've been working my entire life to be able to do." So I think maybe it causes some kind of
Exactly.
identity crisis a little bit where they're like, "Oh, okay, like now I have
It
to do
does.
this thing." Like, no, I'll have somebody else do that. And for me, it was tough at first and I made a ton of mistakes, like a lot of mistakes that could have burned a lot of bridges. Luckily, they didn't. Um, and it was it was just
Interesting.
stuff like contacting uh, old clients of companies that I worked for, and like
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't see it
Yeah.
from any other lens other than the fact that I'm gonna
Right.
go, I'm gonna be aggressive, and I'm gonna try to make this work. Um,
Right. And you were
right at that time,
freelancing.
yeah,
So, you know, yeah. So that makes sense. And that's a fine, fine line. It
yeah,
is.
it's
In business development too.
right,
It's a
right.
small state. The Midwest is very small. Yeah. In our
So
industry.
let me go to this then.
Yeah.
So how this is such a long question or such a long potential answer for it, but like how do you build the relationship with potential clients? I know.
Wow. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, if I think back to my most long-term clients, agencies and direct to client, people that have moved around from place to place, agency to agency. If I think about that, how did I do that? It, Honestly, Matt, it goes back again to the passion I had for the studio that I was working for. I truly believed every time I worked with that client that we could make them better and they could make
Right.
us better. And I say this to my clients now, especially when we're looking for a business development person to help them sell or develop or produce or whatever. There's a lot of different hats that business development people need to wear. Um, the first thing I tell them is you have got to be passionate about
Right.
what you're selling or you're never going to develop a relationship with someone. And I truly believed every time I worked with someone that I could develop that relationship past one project. I never wanted a one-off relationship. I knew I had to start with a one-off relationship, but it was more important to me for them to see why working with us was going to make things easier for them and more consistent for them and more collaborative for them. And in most cases, it that was the case. In most cases, our clients were long-term clients, And so how do I do that? I really focus on the person. I really focus on their personality. I really focus on how they like to work. It's so funny to me. these days, lead generation software is so important for business development, especially since the pandemic. Whether it's LinkedIn or, another piece of software or another relationship that you're joining forces with, um, it's just all about consistency and being relevant and keeping up with clients in a way that you are kind of supporting something that they're not even thinking about yet. Like I always say, when don't think for a minute when you walk out of a presentation that by the time they have their next meeting or the time they end their day, that they're going to remember you, because they're not. They have 10 other of you calling them, emailing them, coming right behind you, where they're probably showing them, relevant work, the same type of work, the same quality of work. The reason that they're going to call you is A, because of your personality and how you truly care about what they need to do. And B, they just saw something from you the other day that made them think, oh, I forgot about Kelly and that studio. I like their work. I'm going to call them.
Right.
If you're not constantly content, if you're not constantly sending things out to represent your work, it's going to be tough. It's
Yep.
going to be more slow moving than it already is. And it's a slow moving process.
Right. No, that's, I think that's a really good way to put it. It kind of leads me to one of the things that I always talk about. Like, if you want to run a successful business, I think that I think that you have to stay top of mind of people. You can't take any offense to the fact that, like, if you're trying to work with somebody and then they work with somebody else instead, like it's not personal at all. Like,
let it go.
There's a good chance that they honestly just forgot.
Yep.
And, it's just one of those things where, for me, that's always what I'm thinking about. Is like, all right, it's trying to stay top of mind however you can. But, like, I think the biggest thing, honestly, is just picking up the phone when they call, or responding to emails in a relatively quick way whenever something like that comes up.
Absolutely.
There are so many people lose work for that one simple thing. They lose work from us. Like, even like if we try to work with a freelancer, like, if it's been like 4 days and we haven't heard from you, we're gonna find someone else that can do the job. Like, that's just kind of how this works.
Exactly.
And it's very much the same. Like, I honestly feel like 75% of the success that Made by Things has had is because we respond to requests relatively quick. Even if it's just like saying, hey, you know what? I'm really busy today. Like, let me get back to you tomorrow by this time. Like, as long as you just set those expectations, like, that's the start. That's the very start of building that relationship. And if you can build it with that trust, like, that is absolutely the most important thing. There's been times where we've won projects over much bigger studios that some could say do better work in some ways. I probably wouldn't say that, but some could. We won projects by bidding more than a competing studio, and it was mostly because of that relationship. It was the 2 years of just, hey, what are you doing? You want to get lunch real quick? Like, see what's going on. And just the sending like updates. Hey, we just did this project. Thought you might think this is cool. Like, it's there's, I don't know, there's so much little stuff to it. And no, not at any point during any of these conversations do I like, all right, so when are we going to work together? Like, I don't say that. It's really just like, I don't know, being friendly and just trying to understand the other person. I think that's the most important part of sales, but I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's also, I think I mentioned earlier, the constant moving around of people too. It's really important. They move from one position to another within an organization, or they move into a new organization, or, agency people are jumping around all the time. I think it's really important. And this is something that I've always done, is really paying attention to people and their lives and what they're doing and where they're going, and reaching out to them when they go, and and it's not really when can we work together again. It's like, if there's anything I can do for you, or if you want to have a quick coffee or conversation about the new position, and I'm excited to hear about it, and I've always done that too. And it's I don't know, I genuinely care about where people are going and why, because I learn a lot from my clients. And I think that's important too. And that takes time, but I'm not saying that you have to make that part of your job. If that's something you don't enjoy, then business development's going to be
Right.
hard for
Right.
you, or sales is going to be hard for you, and you mentioned picking up the phone and calling, and oh my gosh, these days I have such a hard time getting
Right.
the
Right.
younger generation to pick up the phone. It's always so refreshing to me when I do meet someone that
Right.
enjoys that, that's younger and aggressive and out there wanting to do,
Right.
business development.
Right. Yeah.
So picking up that phone and calling people. People weren't answering for a while, but they're answering
Yeah.
again. You know, you can get a
Yeah.
hold of people
Sh-
again where you literally
right.
couldn't before when
That's
everything was
interesting.
shutting down. That was maddening for
Yeah.
me. It was
Shelby, what do you
maddening.
think?
Yeah, this actually
Yeah.
reminded me of something really interesting that I'd been told as a writer, where because a lot of writers are introverted and a lot of writers don't want to go out. A lot of writers are very scared to meet a
Yeah,
lot of other people.
exactly.
Um, there was I was working with one of the older writers. He works in LA. He's kind of one of the veteran writers, and he gave me great and just my favorite piece of advice. He said, keep an Excel spreadsheet of everyone you meet with important information about them. Just little
Yeah.
details, even if it's just their
Yes.
dog's name. So later on, you can ask them and just say, hey,
Yes.
then later they say, that person remembered a really important personal detail about me. They really care about our
Right.
relationship because
Yeah.
those little details can make or
Right.
break a relationship, especially, I mean, if you're bidding against a bigger company or something like
Exactly.
that, it's good to be able to have those personal relationships as well because you establish that trust.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, my database, that's so true. My database has kids' names, colleges they went
Look at you.
to, dogs, I mean, birth dates. It's like, yeah, it's, and before I get on a call with someone, I remind myself, of some of that personal information or the last that I love the way Google organizes emails now, because I'll go back to someone that I'm talking to or doing a capabilities presentation with or whatever. And I'll look at my email string with them, like, what was our conversation like the last time we talked, or the last project that we did, or I'll remember something about that client that they hate, like when they're working, like they want 2 rounds of
Right.
revisions and that's it, or it's just those little things about working, and they like to email or they don't like to email, they like to talk in person. um, I just try to remind myself of that person's work personality, because so many of my clients I've gotten to know outside of work, and I still work with them, but there's a big difference when I'm on a call with someone as a client and when we're just catching up having coffee. I try to keep it, their days are busy, and yeah, we know each other and we know we just got back from vacation or whatever, but let's
Right.
talk about the project right now. We can have coffee later. But it's one of the things I was going to say earlier that I think skipped my mind. All that Excel spreadsheet is the best advice that anyone could have given you. And take a look at the lead generation software now. Take a look at LinkedIn. Take a look at Winmo. Take a look at, what they're telling people that are paying for their lists and their service. They're telling people how people want to communicate. They don't like to talk on the phone. They like to be casual. They're all about business. If you look at some of that software, they give you a
Hmm.
personality profile of everyone that you're going to be reaching out to.
Yeah.
It's so
That's really
important.
interesting. That I'd say that was one of the biggest things for
Yeah.
me. Um, I can't remember where I heard it, but it was something like if you had 200 people, like 200 people that could use your services, then that's how you can start your business basically. Like it would take 200 people and just constantly reaching out to them every month or so. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't know why that number was 200. I don't know what it was to it,
Yeah.
but for me, that was like, when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's what I need to do, is that I need to make sure that I have 200 people that could potentially use my services. Let me take one step back here real quick.
Yeah.
We're selling pretty high ticket items, right? You can sell a notebook, a pencil, like you can sell that without any sales at all potentially. I mean, you could just focus on advertising if that's the case.
Right.
But the higher ticket these items are,
Right.
the more face to face, the more trust is going to be required in that relationship for somebody to, be ready to make a purchase. So anyway, so for me, it was, I spent a lot of time with CRMs, so contact relationship management tools. And it was that idea where it's like, okay, as long as I have used a couple different tools over time. I currently don't use one at all. I should, but I don't. But basically, yeah, it depends. We go through little seasons, basically. Like,
It depends.
I don't mean to,
Yeah.
I don't know, sound arrogant, but right now, like I can't even, I'm struggling to keep up with the incoming leads that we have right now. So for me, I'm like, we're starting to actually turn things off, rather than turn things on.
Wow,
It is.
that's
And
awesome.
I know that over time I'll have to turn it back on again. I get it, right? I'm not trying to say anything else, but so a CRM is one of those things for us where it's like, it will go through all of my emails and tell me when the last time I talked to somebody was. So I'm like, ooh, it's been 180 days. I should probably just reach back out and just see how things are going with them.
Yep.
And it just, to me, that really helped just kind of frame everything as, again, just staying top of mind. But again, not trying to do the old sales pitch, right? It's just see what's going on. Like, more often than not, like, right.
See what's going
those
on.
early
Be
years,
relevant. Yeah.
I would say, I don't know a percentage because I wasn't keeping track at the time, but a lot of projects that I would get early on was because of one of those messages. Someone's like, so weird that you contacted me yesterday, late last night. We had a team meeting saying we need to do a video on this thing. I'm like, boom, right place, right time. And I'll take it. Like, like that's
exactly.
I don't know, and that's
Exactly.
right.
No, it's very true. It's very true. Yeah, those CRMs can be overwhelming. I do know people that say they had to turn theirs off because they were getting so many leads that they can't keep up with it. And then, it's the frequency of reaching out is really important. And a lot of times it can become overwhelming, but with those tools, it helps you be a little more organized. There's a lot of great tools out there. It just depends on what you need. Is it okay if
Go
I throw
ahead.
a question back to you? Because I know what a great job you do with business development. I mean, I know you, I follow you on LinkedIn. It's very impressive how you keep Made by Things brand and messaging consistent. And that's business development in itself, but you're doing it in a way where you're representing your studio every time you do it, and that's really important. How often, a week, a month, do you focus on making sure that you're reaching out to a portion as an owner operator, to a portion of those 200 people in your
Yeah.
database?
So initially, again, it was like, all right, getting those people in there. And then it was like, okay, between 90 and 180 days, I wanted to make sure I was reaching back out to these people. That's definitely slipped off over the last year. Honestly, I've gotten too busy. And the biggest thing that I look at, I keep a lot of metrics now. I'm very much love the Moneyball approach to things where it's like this much money to get me this much effort kind of thing. And it's paying attention to as much data as we can. And again, this is one of those things where, just like sales, it's just not for some people, but for me, I'm very analytical. I love the math that goes behind things. I much rather make decisions based on numbers like that. So one of the things that I look out for is that I have a leads per week goal, right? And I'm constantly tracking them. For the last 2 years, I've tracked every single time that anyone contacts me about a project, even if it's something that's, super low budget and we have to say no to. So I keep track of all these things. I can go back
Yeah.
the last 2 years and tell you the day that every single person contacted me to work on a project. So based
Wow.
on that,
That's
I can
awesome.
then say, okay, well, okay, now we're averaging this many leads per week. And then every time that number dips below or goes higher, I kind of know how I need to respond generally. So like May for us was a weird
Okay.
month where May dipped down. So I was like, that's
Huh.
strange to me. I was like, okay, incoming recession, is this it? Like, is this where things go?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess just after
Yeah.
going through COVID, you kind of see the signs a little bit easier now. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing
Yeah.
less leads come in. Obviously, if we hit less leads, that means we're doing less projects and less business overall later on. So it's kind of like this, it's this future
Right.
telling goal or future telling piece of data that I don't, a lot of people don't keep track of it, but like to me, I'm like, if I didn't keep track of that, I would have no idea where the business is going to be in 3 months from now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so in May, I was like, oh shit, got to do something. I got to change what I'm spending more of my time on. So it was, okay, let's start reaching out to some people. Let's, I started like a summer referral program kind of thing. We just kind of put it out there, just trying to get past
Yeah.
clients to write
I saw that.
testimonials and also,
Yeah.
if they have something coming up at that time,
Yeah.
great. And then
Yeah.
there was, I don't know, I basically sat down for the entire day. I'm like, all right, what can I do right now to try to correct
Okay.
this amount of leads? Well, then what I saw was that in
Yeah.
June we had more leads than we've ever had in a month of June ever. So I was like, okay, and
Wow.
now I'm figuring it out. Like now I'm starting to connect the dots a little bit more. Again, not to
Yeah.
say that I'm any sort of like expert or whatever. Every business is different, and I don't know. It could have just been luck, honestly, and I'm fine with that too. But
Well, that's amazing. It's amazing. And I think what you're telling me right now, that's why I asked, because the question you asked me originally, why do creative directors suck at selling, at sales? Um, you're a creative director, and it's rare for a creative director to have both the analytical and the creative side of what you do. So those types of, plus you have a deep, deep appreciation. I mean, all the way back to being, I don't know, you're young now, but you were so young at Space Junk. Even going way back to knowing that you were watching me and observing what the business development process was, that tells me that you appreciate, and that's the most important word. You value and
right,
appreciate business development. Therefore, you're better at it than most because you have that value and appreciation
right,
for what it takes. And you just demonstrated in your answer that it takes a lot and consistent work,
right,
to get those leads. And most owner operators, creative directors
right,
are not able to do that and process both sides of it. More importantly, they're not able to dedicate the time consistently that it takes
right,
to develop those relationships. And it's hard for them to let someone
right.
in to
And
do
honestly,
that for
that's
them.
that's been that's been me from when I was a kid. Honestly, like my mom always tells me this story. I don't remember. I was too young, but my brother and sister. Let's just say they made a lot of mistakes when they were younger. But I have two older siblings, and I was the good kid, right? And my mom seemed to just wonder why that was. And I was like, "No, well, I see whenever they do things how it makes you feel. So I'm like, I can't remember what the analogy was here. I'm like, I think I told her that it's almost like I'm standing on some sort of hill watching down on like all this stuff happen and then trying to not make the
Yeah,
same sort of mistakes. Honestly, I think that the biggest thing comes
right,
with just empathy in general. I don't want to make people feel bad. I like making people feel good. And I think
right,
that's the part that helps me with that
right.
sales side of things. But then
Yep.
creating is what makes me feel good. So it's kind of this thing where I want to feel good and I
Yeah.
want other people to feel good. And
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's rare. It's hard. It's funny now that I'm just on my own. So much of the time I spend with my
Right,
clients is
right.
almost like therapy. A lot of it, especially at the beginning, I have a 90-minute
Mm-hmm.
just kind of discovery that I do with clients initially, just to make sure we're going to be a good fit. And so much of that is asking questions that helps me try to determine how willing they're going to be to change. And some of them never will,
Yeah.
and some of them are great at it, you know. But again, it's going back to that relationship development. I have very few clients that are cold, new clients. My clients are people that I've worked with for a long time or that I've been referred by someone that
Right.
I've worked with for a long time, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's already a little bit of trust there when I start working with them, or they know, of me and the studios that I, developed and that type of thing. But
Right.
so much of it is
But
therapy.
and that goes to that. It goes to a couple of different things there. So one, you see a lot of stuff. Anyone that's listening, anyway, that follows me on LinkedIn, like you'll see a lot of just me being as vulnerable as I am in real life, right? It's that idea of vulnerability.
Yeah, yeah,
One, it's always been easier for me to just kind of have my heart on my sleeve, I guess, and just say things. It makes, again, that's
me
another one of those
too.
things that makes me feel better, and I
Me too.
see the response that people have where they're like, "Oh wow,
Right.
like I feel that same way," and it's like that to me. That's my way of connecting with people, and I do the same thing with clients too.
Yeah,
Like if somebody calls and they want to do a project, and I want to understand kind of where they're coming from. I want to understand some of the goals that they have, why any decisions that are there
yeah,
have already been made, and be able to share anything from my life personally that can do that. So like one of the things, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but like we had a client last year that worked at a children's hospital, and I've spent more
hmm,
time than a parent should at a children's hospital, so I already have a deeper connection to
yeah,
a children's hospital. So on this client, this first time I'm
yeah,
talking to these people, I'm almost in tears, and I'm like, all right, let's not go there. Like I'm not trying to put on a show or any of this stuff. I feel,
yeah,
and I feel pretty openly, I guess.
yeah,
And
yes,
honestly, I mean, looking back at it now, I'm
yeah,
like, I feel like that was a big part of why they chose us, was because they knew that if we take this project, it is personal.
absolutely,
This is not just another paycheck to us, and
absolutely,
that's the kind of stuff that everybody on my team wants to do. We want to do
yeah,
the stuff that's personal to us, and but it's
yeah,
something as small as that, to be able to just say what you're feeling. Sometimes I think is the thing that connects us, and it builds trust and it builds a
yeah,
relationship, and I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean that philosophy is really important in kickoff meetings and brainstorm meetings, and setting it's important for me, the business develop. It always has been important. Again, my process. I really I haven't built my career by reading, certain books or applying for certain strategies for say. It's just really been relationship development. And then, of
Right,
course,
right.
I'm very disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
extremely disciplined in what I do. Um, but, that honesty and vulnerability is important in kickoff meetings and brainstorms. And the client really feeling a connection with you is really important, especially as a creative. Um, it's also important, and a lot of people don't do this as much, but it's also very important to me when a project is done. Now, if it was absolutely perfect and I knew everything went really well, and I know you just know at the end of it
Right,
that
right.
it was a great experience. In that case, I'll do some type of an immediate thank you, or send them a gift card, or just do something to thank them genuinely for working with us. In other cases, that same openness and vulnerability is important in a postmortem. Like making sure that you contact a client that you've worked with the first time, or maybe in a completely different way. Maybe they've always done animation and all of a sudden they wanted to do mixed media or live action or stop motion or something like that. It's always really important, no matter how well you think it went, to follow up and say, how was that experience for you? I know it was a little different. Was there anything we can help you with that maybe you want to learn as a result of doing stop motion now? Like, again, really caring about the experience that client had with you.
All right. So one question that I have is, I guess, I guess there's two things that I'm curious here. But let's go with the first thing here, and that is for people looking to kind of go out on their own, for individual freelancers. I think this is another thing where freelancers often think that they don't have to kind of do any business development of their own. They think
That's
that
very
I can
true.
just go freelance and I can do this thing, and all of a sudden they get all this freedom in the
That's
world,
very
and I
true.
can go to the beach and work and all that stuff. But so what advice do you give to those individuals jumping out on their own that all of a sudden realize that, uh-oh,
Yeah.
this doesn't work
It's funny
like that?
because I do a lot of mentoring and talking to young people that are just coming out of college or leaving a job and wanting to go freelance. And, I talk a lot about this. The first thing I tell people when they're either planning to be a freelancer from the get-go, or if they're jumping ship to be a freelancer, I give them my 90-10 speech, which you may have even heard, Matt, at Space Junk, I don't know. But it's 90% personality, 10% talent. If you're a jerk, I don't want to work with you. I don't care how talented you are. And, we want people on our team that are collaborative and cooperative and care about people and not just their craft. So I tell them right away that, when you get out there as an individual, you have to be not just an artist, you have to be a relationship developer, you have to care about your clients, you have to pay attention and listen. You have to hold to schedules. It's not just going to be when you want to work, and sometimes there's deadlines that might interrupt other things in your day. So I tell them that personality matters, and being a genuine person. If they just want to sit behind a box and work, then they probably shouldn't freelance. And they probably should be in a place where they can practice their craft all day. If they are going to go out on their own, I tell them the exact same thing that you said earlier, Shelby, in that start a database right away, have an idea of who you want to reach out to, find somebody to talk to that can help you determine who you want to reach out to. Like, don't reach out to places that you don't want to work for or brands that you don't want to represent. Give some thought originally to how you would structure your business, because it is a business, even if you're a freelancer. It is, and then we get into please pay your taxes, please get an accountant, all those
Right.
kinds of things. But
Right.
it's really, those are the first things I tell them is it's personality, it's dedication, build a database, get to know your clients, send your work out when it's done, show as much personal work as you can. Personal work matters. It represents you as an artist in a way that you won't always be represented as, in the studio or as an artist. Clients are going to make changes to your work that you're not going to be happy about. But that's okay, because use your personal work or do a director's cut or whatever. That's for the young ones coming out. I pretty much tell them some of the same things that I tell my grown clients, the owner operators, that, you have to be pleasant to work with. Talent can be taught, but you have to be pleasant to work with, and you have to focus on your business. And a lot of people, I can tell just by the way they're staring back at me, the ones that get it and the ones that have no idea what I'm talking about. You know, And those usually sidebar later and say, can I have coffee with you? Because I really didn't understand what you were saying and I'd like to learn more. Or they decide, it's probably not a good idea to
Right.
freelance right from the get-go.
Right. I think that's a good point. I get a lot of people asking me the same questions. I get a lot of people asking for like coffee and stuff like that on LinkedIn because they're like, I want to know like how you're doing all this. I'm like, the only
Yeah.
thing you see is that I post to LinkedIn every day, and I don't feel like that's very difficult. I think what you were
It's
going to
discipline.
earlier, it's just discipline, where it's like it's the
Yeah.
first thing on my checklist every day, so I do it. Some posts are good and some are crappy, and I'm not happy with them. But that's not really for me to decide,
exactly.
honestly.
Exactly.
So
it's
just-
discipline.
I don't know.
And whether you're sitting behind a box in an agency or a studio, you have to be disciplined to their pipeline and process, or that doesn't change. A lot of people think, "Ooh, I'm going to go freelance and I won't have anyone looking over my shoulder or giving me, making me fill out a timesheet or giving me my tasks, my daily tasks,
Right.
and deadlines." It's not going to be. It needs to be that way when you go as a freelancer. You need to. Those pipelines and processes are there for a
Right.
reason. And if you don't like them, then
100%.
restructure them for yourself when you go as a freelancer. Try different
Right.
things. But don't think that you're just going to have this
Yeah.
wonderful, easy life where everything's just going to come to you magically.
Right, right. That's a really good point too. Is that, and I'm guilty of this myself. Maybe this is one of those things that you just sort of
You
have
have to
to learn
learn your
for
own
yourself
process.
as you go through things. And that's like for me, I was like, I feel like every place that I've ever worked at has been doing it wrong. And the longer I'm in business, the more I find myself adapting to some of the ways that they did things. I mean, I don't regret anything that I did, but it was just like I had to figure out why
Right.
certain things were the way that they
Right.
were.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's hard for a
and
studio to support business development. It's really, really hard.
right. The last sort of question that I have here is, I'm curious how. So you said
Probably
25
a
years
little
that you've been doing
longer.
this. I'd have to
I
imagine
stopped
that.
counting.
Yeah. I guess. I guess I'm curious, like how you've seen things change a little bit. Obviously, again, the common denominator is relationships. I don't think
Right.
that has ever changed or will ever change. But kind of looking at this sort of trajectory that we are sort of on right now, do you see business development changing
Oh,
a lot
absolutely.
over the next
Yeah.
25 years?
I mean, it's already changed drastically since the pandemic. Like I said, conversations stopped, phone calls stopped. For me, I've always been a relationship face to face. I would go to every city that we did business in to not only see my clients, to not only do new business development, but to see my clients, to show up and bring lunch and tell them what we've been up to, maybe a new artist, a new technique that we're doing, find out what their challenges have been, what they're looking for, that type of thing. So that all stopped. And I think for me, like I said, people are finally picking up the phone again, which is joyful, to be able to reach out to people in person now. But the thing that's changing in business development now is it's hard. You have to get out there with content on your social channels. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. What's the other one that's big now? TikTok. That is crucial for creative studios. And so that adds a whole element
Right.
to the business development process because not everyone has a social team. So you have to kind of figure out, it's all about content, and having things to put out there. So you just have to figure out your pipeline and your process so that you're hitting all those things on a weekly basis. It needs to be weekly. I mean, daily, weekly, once a month, I would say at the very least. This is something I've had my own business for a year now, a little over a year. I don't even have my website up. I don't have my social media going yet, and I know I need to. So I'm
Right.
I'm my own worst enemy, right? So, my business is always evolving, so it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what I'm doing with my clients, but it's hard. It's really hard. And so for me in the next 25 years, I think business development's gonna switch, unfortunately, less of the face to face, more of the Zoom, more of the virtual, and a lot more of
Right.
responsibility for social and content and getting it out there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's really interesting. The one thing that you were saying earlier is just posting your work. I don't know why creatives have such a hard time
I
just
know.
posting the work that they've completed, but there are studios that have been in business for years and
I
years. I'm like,
know.
I haven't seen anything
I
from them
know.
in a while. And I'm like, I'm, I
Right.
don't know, you can't stop us from posting about work. Like the day that we're
Exactly.
allowed, it's like, boom, let's go, let's
Exactly.
launch it here, here, here. Like to the point where we even, if we're not able to show a piece on our portfolio, we actually charge an additional
Good for
fee to
you.
clients for that. I call
Good
it
for
a
you.
missed opportunity fee because like it's such a huge part
Right.
of how we can keep our business going. If we go radio silent for 5 months, that
Yep.
the business itself takes a hit on that. So like I need to
Yep.
be able to constantly be able to share these things, and I don't know. Like I'm always updating our portfolio, just writing
Yep.
case studies, just going through the whole thing. 'Cause I guess the one thing is if I waited a year or two
Right.
to write a case study, it's not going to be nearly as good
Exactly.
because it won't be as in depth. There's so many things are going to be forgotten. So it's writing those great case studies and just sharing with people and just I don't know. People are always like, well, I don't know what kind of content to
Your
post out there. It's
content.
like
Yeah.
the work that
What
you're doing
what
is
you're doing
content.
every day. Yeah.
Like, so it's just
Yeah,
like
exactly.
right. Right. And you know, even us, like we run out of new things to post. Great, we'll post old things. There's a
Yep.
lot of people out there that haven't seen the old stuff. And great, if they've seen it again, oh well. Like I think that's the other thing is that people are like, "Oh, I
So
posted that
what?
last year." It's like that was last year.
Right.
Nobody remembers it anymore. You can post the same
Right.
exact thing with the same writing with it
Exactly.
and then
Because it's
people will
going
be
to
like, "Oh,
touch
that's
new
cool."
people too.
And I've
Yeah.
I've certainly done that
Yeah.
before, but
Yeah.
exactly. Anyway, all right, let's go into our final thoughts. Shelby, I'm gonna let you kind of go first. Just final thoughts on uh, doing better at business development. Let's just say that, or any other
Yeah,
thoughts
I
that
was just kind of
have
thinking about
come
this,
up.
like with the socials discussion. I think a lot of it comes down to retaining your authenticity on the internet, because I think that's something that
Oh
a
my
lot of
gosh.
people lose.
Yes.
We post the best parts of our life, and we make everything seem like everything's perfect and it's completely washed over. And I think that people can tell, you know, especially in meetings too, if it's just, this is the best of the best and that's all I'm going to cover. I
Right,
think it's important to retain that authenticity, especially in a time where we can't have face-to-face meetings and we can't really establish those face-to-face personal relationships. Being
Yep.
able to go online and just see what somebody's doing, how their life is going in that moment, and not have it be some washed over view of their life. A real look at what they're doing, who they are
right,
at that moment, what they're creating, where they are creatively, the good, the bad, everything. I think it's good to retain the authenticity
That's
and be
a,
real.
that's a really good point.
right,
Authenticity in your public profile, if you will, which, it's, the whole social thing is tough because you do see sides of people that you're like, you know, sometimes. And then but I so appreciate what you just said because being authentic is not always ever really being perfect and someone who is perceived as having it all down and having it all figured out, that's not real. and that's not real in work either by any means. So
Right.
my favorite creative directors that I have ever worked with are the ones that are so always curious and always in kickoff meetings willing to ask tough questions of the client, so that they can learn more about what they're going to create for them. I just, and being authentic, those people thinking back are really authentic in real life as well as in meetings, in my meetings. And I will say too,
Right.
the flip side of that though is, I do look at social channels when I start to work with someone. I do look at their profile and see what they're posting. And, it can sway a little bit one way or the other depending on what you see. I tell my kids that, like, make don't think that people that you're interviewing with aren't looking at your social profiles. They are, and just be careful, especially when my kids
Right.
were a lot younger. But
Right.
yeah, I
That's the part that's not really fair for kids right now, is that they're gonna write things when they're
With them
13,
forever.
that if
they
it stays
will.
there, they will be judged on
They
that when
will.
they're 25. So it's not fair, but that's something that, I don't know. I guess this
Yeah.
newer generation has to really
And
think
I mean,
about.
in all honesty,
But
I'm a lot older, so I really don't think about what I post as much. I don't post anything political ever. I try not to. Um, but,
good
you
thinking.
know, I don't worry too much about what I'm posting because it's just, I don't know. It's my dogs and my family and, stuff like that. But I do
Right.
enjoy following people, though. There's certain people in the industry that I enjoy following, and people out there too
Right.
that I follow that I really want to work with for both what they do in their work and,
Right.
what their interests are outside of work.
Right. Honestly, for me, it's always been a big thing too, that authenticity thing, where it's like, honestly, I tried dressing up nice when I go and visit people, but it's not me. It's never been who I am. So that's why I just kind of committed to the hat every day, where I'm like, you know what? Like, how I'm
Yeah.
comfortable, and it's this weird thing where I think that I don't know, like, to me, I always, people always say, like, you got to be a thought leader in what you're doing, and maybe, but for me, I'm like, I find much more enjoyment being the anti-thought leader. Like, oh, I don't know certain things, or no, this is who I am. Like I enjoy that side of things more. But yeah, so for me, it's like, when I show up wearing a hat in meetings, I can definitely see the
Really?
surprise in people's faces. Sometimes they're like, because if they're dressed up or something like that, they just might not be expecting it. But I don't know. I guess I have the confidence in
Absolutely.
what I know in these conversations, so that can overcome anything. So it's almost like setting the bar low and then being able to just be like, great.
That's
Like,
funny.
now I just exceeded your
Yeah,
bar
no,
because it was so
I
low.
mean,
But
I was in the business when, you had to dress up a little more, and then slowly,
right,
little by little, I would walk into rooms to present and everybody would be in jeans and t-shirt. And it's like I slowly, if that, because that's
yeah,
me too. Like I don't like to dress up, or wear
right,
heels or anything like that. And
right,
I was so
right,
thankful when the industry changed and everybody was allowed to. I think it's great. I mean,
right,
I think being allowed to be yourself and be comfortable has changed the industry so much, especially the direct business, the direct to client business. I mean, there was never a time when I would walk into, you know, Chase or Worthington Industries or, way back when, and everybody would be dressed up. Now nobody's dressed up. And it's allowed us to just get down
yeah,
to doing what we do.
right,
I really think it's been
right.
for the better the way that things have
Agree.
gotten more casual.
For sure. For me, it's like anytime I wear, like, I don't know, dressed up button up
Yeah.
shirt or any of that stuff when I do my hair, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm not really being myself, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not really how I want to
You're not
present
being yourself.
myself
You're not being
to
authentic,
clients. Like
like
I
you
want to
said.
be real with
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
right? But anyway, Kelly, any final thoughts? I know we've kind of gone all over the place here, but anything that you need to say to the world
I
about business
mean,
development
no,
at this
just
point?
really like speaking to owner operators, just try to trust in it, try to understand that it's a long process. Make sure if you're going to do it, support the people that are going to do it with you. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, and you have to have a solid team behind you, including the owner operator. But no, just enjoy it. If you're going to do it, enjoy it and work hard at it.
Right.
It'll reap the benefits. It just takes time. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. So let's see here. I would say something similar to that. Um, it can feel really difficult at first in business development sales. And you might hear people talking about different
Right.
ways to do it, and some of those things might make you cringe. But you don't have to do every. I mean, I don't know. I guess
exactly.
certainly try whatever. You know, like it doesn't have
Yeah.
to work. You can always learn what not to do. You know, but try different things and find what works for you specifically. And I think that's a key thing. There is that everybody has a different approach to this. Like me and Kelly both have different approaches to business development. I mean, we have again
Right.
common denominators, but we have different approaches, and we both do what works well
Yep.
with us, like what feels good with us personally, and just I
Oh
don't know,
my
like
gosh.
ethically, I guess, is even like a big thing. Like how do you
Exactly.
want to be sold to, you know? And that's constantly what I'm asking myself. And it's like, you know, think about those things. Think about the people that you have bought something from in
Exactly.
the past, and why did you do that? And the people
Yeah.
that you ignored, why did you ignore them? Because like
Yeah.
you knew that they just wanted a thing from you, right? So it's thinking about
Yeah.
those kinds of things and finding your own approach. But I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're gonna run a business, be freelance, do any of that kind of stuff, you absolutely
Yep.
100% have to do business development. It's a necessity. It's just in how you do it. I think you can. That's where the creativity sort of comes into play there,
Yeah.
I guess, when it comes
Yeah,
to.
and
when it
it
comes
should
to
always be evolving. You know, there's not one right way to do anything, and your way that
Right.
makes you comfortable is the best way to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
that. Right. 100%. Awesome. Well, Kelly, I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
you
This was
hopping on
fun.
here for this. This was a really great conversation. I
Oh,
think
I
a lot of
hope
people will
so.
get a lot from this. Something that the
No, they
industry doesn't
don't.
talk about enough, most likely,
Yeah.
in my eyes anyway. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you jumping on there, and yeah, let's. I don't know. I never have a good sign off for these things, right? I keep talking about it, like, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. All right. I usually go with my. All right. I love you. Bye.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No.
I think people look at me funny sometimes, so I'm like,
Love you back for sure.
Anyway.
Yeah. No,
All right,
I really appreciate this. It was great.
Kelly.
It's fun to talk about what I do, and I always learn something from these conversations or remind myself of something. So, you know, and I encourage anyone who listens to this and thinks that, you know, they need to do something different or need to do something new, do it, you know, and reach out to people and run things by people, and, you know, just keep it going. That's the most important thing. Just keep it going.
Right. All right. As soon as I say
Okay.
bye here, I want you to stick around for just a moment.
Love you, bye.
Okay. All right. Love you. Bye.
The CMD-Z show is created by Made by Things. And if you have a question you would like us to discuss, you can send a message at cmdz.show. And if you like what you hear, leave a review. We'll see you next week with a brand new show.